Someone asked me if I like playing Mage. Is Mage fun? I think Mage is pretty fun. Something that's an interesting factoid that you may or may not know is Mage is actually the least played PvP class in WoW. When you look at it on like as a whole, even when you combined at the moment, yeah, at the moment for this expansion. Let me guess, Red is the most played. It's not like I'm making this up. What do you think the reason for that is? I think Mage, okay, so I think Mage right now at a very high level is strong, right? Like, I think if you're a really good Mage, you can compete with like anything for the most part. But the way Mage plays is really kind of obnoxious. Like the way you have to play to survive is obnoxious. I don't think it's necessarily easy to pull off. The way you deal damage is like, it's complicated for some reason. Like obviously Fire Mage isn't, but like Arcane Mage, the way you deal damage is super complicated. Even like Frost Mage, all you do is Ice Lance, but like, it's just a really weird rotation, you know? It feels like Mage is just like, it's really uninspired. It feels like they literally forgot about it as like a class. It hasn't got any good changes in such a long time. I like Cataclysm Fire. I like Legion Arcane. And I like some of the older Mage, older Frost Mage. You didn't even play Catafire? Catafire was the best. Most fun ever. What made it so fun? So Mage has turned away from... Mage used to be like an actual glass cannon, right? It used to be like how a Devastation Evoker is now, right? Where you had like really high consistent damage, you were kind of squishy, you had a huge burst. They've watered down Mage, so it's like, now all you do is you just poop out little procs. You know, like as a Frost Mage, you just lance, 10% of someone's health, 10% of someone's health, 10% of someone's health. Like, it's not bad, but it's like, it's kind of boring. And same with like Fire. Like in the past, if you got a Pyro proc, it scared the shit out of someone. You know, it felt good. It's like, oh my God, I have a Pyro proc. I'm about to one shot. Like in Wrath and Kata, it was like, shit, a Pyro? Let's go, baby. This is gonna feel good. Now you literally, to kill someone, you have to use Pyro 12 times in a row. It's just bizarre. So Mage now is just all about shitting out little tiny procs that don't do anything. Whereas in the past, it used to be like, dude, you're smoking people, you know? Now buttons feel hollow. Exactly, man. They need to prune a lot of stuff from Mage. Like Slick Ice needs to be pruned. Thermal Void needs to be pruned. Mage has just turned into like, oh, you want to have as much uptime as your cooldowns as possible, which I think is really boring. I don't know. I just hate when you just have all these spells and they don't do anything. I desperately hope Mage gets a redesign. Apparently, I've been talking to some PvEers, and PvEers hate Mage. Like, they think it's like really, really boring and terrible. I was speaking to Preheat a little bit, who's a big raider. He's saying he thinks literally every one of his alts is more fun than Mage, and if he only played Mage, he would have quit the game. He said, I'm extremely glad I swapped off Mage, would have probably quit now otherwise. The class is stale and you can tell it's just not a priority. He likes all of his alts more than his Mage, they're not fun to play, everything is watered down. It's really true. Actually, all 3 specs of Mage need to be pruned and redone. Like I could name like 4 things from every spec that needs to be pruned, and then they could like redo their damage to make it way more interesting. He made some memes here. I'll show you the memes. Here's one.
What are you doing?
Look at the patch notes.
What are you doing?
Mage literally didn't get any changes. It's the only class that got 0 changes in 10.1. Why?
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Nothing. Me? Just hanging around.
Look at this. Mage is going to 10.1 with absolutely no changes, knowing their class is completely perfect as is. So ridiculous. Then you take some inspiration from Diablo 4 Sword. They just need to do something, bro. Mage is really, really boring. You want to know like talents I would immediately prune? You want to know talents I would immediately prune for Mage? Okay, so if you want to actually make Frost Mage damage fun again, this is what you prune. You have to literally... First thing I would prune, this is what I would do. If I could... The first thing I would do, so you could kind of rework Mage from the ground up. Enchanters equal deleted or pruned. Enchanters pruned, Rune of Power equals pruned. Okay? I would instantly delete those. They're really boring. Rune of Power, nobody wants to cast a modifier that you just stand in. It's dumb. And Enchanters is just basically a meaningless talent. Like, oh, occasionally you do more damage, and sometimes you don't do that much damage. Nobody pays attention to it. Nobody cares. Delete it. I'm perfectly fine with that. That's the first thing I would get rid of for all specs is Enchanters and Rune of Power. For Frost Mage in particular, I would instantly prune Freezing Winds. Freezing Winds equals pruned. And the reason why is it gives you way too many Fingers of Frost procs, which means when you're overloaded with procs, the procs can't do meaningful damage. Okay? So even though it's fun to drop a Frozen Orb and just lance, it's actually not that fun because what ends up happening is you get so many procs that your procs have to do shit damage. So I would instantly prune that, and I would also prune Thermal Void. So Thermal Void is the increased duration on Veins. Thermal Void equals pruned. I would prune Thermal Void, which is the increased duration on Veins, and also your Ice Lances extend your Veins. And the reason why I would prune that is because, once again, Mages has turned from a class that like used to actually like really mess things up into like just little baby damage the whole time. Like, ooh, Icicles and ooh, Ice Lances, and all of them don't do anything. You know what I mean? And your whole game plan is just, oh, let's just extend my haste and my ice event. No, not cool. I want to fuck shit up. I want to shatter people. I want to 1-dig people. That's what I want. All right? So Thermal Void, get it out of here. That's number 2. Number 3, Slick Ice. Slick Ice also. Slick Ice equals pruned. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, they need to actually rework Frost. I'm not saying just remove those. Like, you have to remove them and then compensate the damage elsewhere. But, like, maybe then some of our other spells could hit a little harder, you know? Yeah, Lonely Winter is another one. Lonely Winter equals pruned. I agree with that. Get Lonely Winter out of here too. That's what I would do for Frost. Water Elemental as a cooldown, again, would be really cool. I agree. Make Water Elemental like Tyrant. But yeah, this is where I would start. And then from there, you can kind of work it up. Like, from this point, if you did all of this, you would actually have to like do different things. Like, yeah, you could bring back Water Elemental as like a strong cooldown, like it was in TBC and Wrath and stuff like that, and Kata, which I personally liked it. I don't like permanent Water Elemental, but I don't mind like a pet Water Elemental that gives you some special powers and stuff like that, like a greater Water Elemental. You could actually make Ice Lance hit harder. You just make the rotations a lot more interesting, you know? You can maybe bring back Ebon Bolt as like a baseline spell. Something. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot that they could work with. I also feel like Icicle Mastery is really boring. Icicle Mastery equals boring. Nobody likes little chip damage. You don't even notice the damage. You build up 5 Icicles and you unleash them, you don't even notice it. I personally think it's boring, and I would bring back Shatter. Bring back Shatter, baby. Bring it back! I think Frost right now is actually kind of cool. I don't like it that much. I think current Frost only functions because of all the PvP modifiers that they put in. Like, have you looked at them? Have you seen how many PvP modifiers Frost has compared to the other specs? It's actually insane. Like, the only reason Frost is as good as it is because Blizzard just artificially made it good. I guess not artificially, but like, it just has way more damage than the other specs for no reason. Well, not for no reason, but you know what I mean? Like, when you compare Frostfire and Arcane, the only reason Frost is as good as it is because all of its abilities have just been like giga buffed. They just decided that Frost was going to be the best spec, so they just gave it like 30% more damage than anyone else with PvP buffs. They could have made Snowdrift so fun. You know what they should have done to Snowdrift? They should have just made it Maze ult. Like, instead of Snowdrift just happening around you in melee range, you could just place it. Even if it had a 20-yard range, like, you could just put a circle on the ground that Snowdrifted. Like, it would have just been way better and way more fun. Exactly, like Frozen Orb. I don't know why it has to be melee range. Like, as a mage, you don't want to be a melee. All mage talents augment the way you deal damage, none of them change the way you control the matchup. Mage has been like that for a while now. I know. That's what I'm saying. The design of Mage hasn't changed. And you know what's really a shame? Is I feel like the reason why Mage does... Well, I don't know, because it doesn't change in PvE either. But it feels like they're really scared to give mages any, like, fun tools. Because of tournament. Like, I swear it's because of tournaments. Because, like, Mage does well. Like, because Mage does well in tournaments with, like, Mage Rogue and Mage Lock. They just, like, they won't give us anything. Last 5 DB Alter Time are fun. I agree. You know what? I will say this, guys. Can we get some poggers in the chat for Alec? I like that Alec is here to play, like, Devil's Advocate a little bit, and, you know? Because I think those are cool tools also. I like that we have DB. I like that we have Blast Wave. I like Alter Time. Like, there are fun tools. But I feel like there's just something missing, man. There's also some things for Arcane that I think could be cool too. I don't know how you guys feel about the current Arcane Mage design. I feel like I don't know. I feel like there's things about Arcane that I think are really clunky. Like, if I could prune anything from Arcane, I would prune Radiant Spark. I would actually prune their new cooldown too. I don't like it personally. I personally am not a big fan. I don't like the cast CD Arcane Surge. Although I could see it being fun in PvE. It's just so weird, man. Sometimes I feel like they have like such a winner and then they make changes for the sake of making changes. Like Legion Arcane was so good. I loved Legion Arcane. I actually loved it. I liked using Arcane Explosion to get clear casting procs. I like that missiles were only usable during clear casting procs and actually did a ton of damage. I love Mark of Alunith. I love Displace. Like, yeah, I don't know why. They just like decided, oh yeah, we don't want people to use Arcane Explosion for getting clear casting procs. No one loved facing it. Yeah, that's fair. Sometimes that's just the way it is, bro, you know? Sometimes that's just the way it's gotta be. Okay, so if I was in charge, if I was in charge of fire, I would make fire a dot spec again. I think you make frost like the single target burst, big shatter, control spec, and you make fire like I'm going to do the most damn ever. Like rebuff living bomb. I feel like on a fundamental level, combustion needs to change. I think combustion is really boring. Sorry, I really do. I think like catacombustion was infinitely more interesting. I think the current combustion where you just sit there and you get pyro procs and you just pyro, and pyro does literally less damage than Ice Lance. You guys remember when pyro actually like hurt people? Like if you got a pyro proc, it actually felt like insane. Now it literally does less damage than Ice Lance. I think one thing that should happen to fire, in my personal opinion, this is my own personal opinion, I think Fire Blast needs to be back on global. I think they need to rebuff Living Bomb. They need to change Living Bomb to like a more functional version of it that used to be fun. I think they need to get rid of like the CDR. They just need to change Combust completely. I don't like Combust at all. What are your thoughts on Scorch? I think Scorch could be interesting. I like the idea of like scorching someone to like set them up, you know what I mean? Like making them fire vulnerable. I always thought that was the cool thing about Scorch. So basically the way Cata Fire worked, let me tell you how Cata Fire worked, okay? So you had a bunch of different dots. So you had dots as Cata Fire. You had Pyro dot, you had Fireball dot, you had Living Bomb. What else did you have? And then you had your Ignite. So like if you crit a Pyro or you crit a Fireball and you got a big Ignite, and you had Shatter too, I'm pretty sure. So you could like Nova, Pyro somebody. Okay, so you had a bunch of dots you managed with these, which is really, really fun. So you get a Pyro proc. So basically, like the ideal situation is like you have Living Bomb up, you get a Pyro proc, you Nova, you Shatter it, it does big, big damn. You have a fat Ignite, you have a fat Pyro, maybe you have a Fireball, maybe you have a Living Bomb. And then what you could do is Combust, okay? Now what Combust did, Combust was a completely different design, and what it did is it merged all of your dots into a super dot. So you would still have Pyro, Fireball, Living Bomb, and Ignite, but you'd have Combust up too, and your Combust did damage based off how big your dots were. So if you just got like a Pyro crit and you had a big Ignite, it would do giga damage. And then what was even more fun about it is you would use Impact to spread. So Impact will let you spread your dots to nearby targets. So it's all about like managing your dots and getting like Pyro procs and getting a big combustion and then using an Impact to spread it to the whole team and just literally just watching them all die. It was so fun. Was the dot dispellable? It was, yeah. I mean, this is a Hansel PvP video. Hansel, Cata, PvP. I think this is where you see like what happens when he spreads a combust to everyone. So he's trying to get a Pyro proc. Okay, here's it is. He has combust on their whole team. Look at the damage. You could literally spread combust to entire raids. Look at this. Look at the fucking damage. It was so fun. Buttons aren't nearly as satisfying anymore. That's what I'm saying. Like, as a mage, would you rather get a Pyro proc and know that it's gonna actually hurt someone, or would you rather get 1,000 mini Pyro? Like, would you rather have 10,000 Pyro procs in a game that all do meaningless damage, or would you rather have, like, you know, a decent amount that do really good damage? Like, what is more fun? See, look at that. That's what I like about Scorch. Like, you'd Scorch and get critical mass up. Nice little double DB, big meteor, big dam. Dude, do you guys remember when Meteor... Okay, so I don't know if you guys remember this. You want to know an example? Like, can I just give you guys one example? Like, wait a minute. I'm going to give you guys one example of something that literally just killed the fun of spells. You ready for it? Are you ready? Here's an example of literally neutering any fun that a spell has. when they made it so Meteor gets soaked. When Meteor split damage. So the old Meteor, if you dropped it on 10 people, it would kill all 10 people. Now, if you drop it on 10 people, it does 1/10 the damage. Does that make any sense? Like, how is that fun? I genuinely don't get it. And it like soaks with pets and stuff too. Imagine dropping a fucking meteor on someone's head and it's just getting soaked. Mythic Plus ruined that shit, man. Look at them. He just drops a meteor on their head and they both die. Like, you actually are rewarded for hitting your meteor. That's it. Like, that's a crazy little, like that right there is just a crazy like little thing, you know? Like what I was just talking about. Like, you're actually incentivized to land your AoE on multiple people because it doesn't split damage. Like, how lame is that? Well, dropping a meteor on them and it splits damage. Like, this isn't a raid encounter. I want to kill people with my spells, man. Why is everything soaked?